Ohio minasan, konnichiwa. Today, today I really want to get it out of my system. I want to discuss the difference between you, your mind, and your brain. Actually, this discussion I feel could go for a long space. Uh, I remember the first time I thought of it. But I remember one time I was trying to think about something, and I realized every single time I focused on thinking, I completely lost what I was trying to do and ended up thinking of something else. Which is probably kind of the same as the previous video where I mentioned the triggers that kind of impact us and how we engage with things, I guess. So I realized my involvement was more the kind of like the pointing finger. I said pointy once in one of the videos, but the pointing fingers, it kind of goes this one, this one, this one. The problem is when I say this one, everything surrounding it comes to life. And then if I don't let it play out in my head the way it's supposed to, if I just go, oh, okay, this one as well, what happens is the minute I focus on something that contributes to the original thought or point, what happens was different thoughts pertaining this one because my intention switched. And I'm using intention very like carefully because ultimately that's when I kind of realized that every single time I think, I'm actually standing in my way. I know. But from there, I came to accept that I'm not as smart as I'm supposed to be, or I think I am. And the first thing that came to mind was, am I the one that actually thinks? Am I the one that actually studies? Am I the one that actually understands processes? What the fuck am I in this equation? It's a valid question, right? We all have had frustrations when we're trying to study something, trying to learn something new, trying to understand something, try to comprehend, build the concept around something. We all have those in us. And for me, on a personal note, I realized that I'm smart enough to kind of convince myself that I am smart. But in terms of explaining what smart actually is, I've completely failed in every single sense of the matter. And I used my history to kind of prove it. My history of, I want to say, the past 10 years. They're supposed to be the 10 years that you build towards something. And these are the years where you kind of like, where I chose, this is when I'm starting and building. I started at 26, and by 36, I was like, fuck this shit. It doesn't seem to be working. What could I possibly be doing wrong? The positive thing is, like in 2018, 6 years after I kind of like started this whole thing, I stopped exposing myself to the world in a way where I'm like actively trying to build something and started researching more, reading more, just being more interested in stuff. Lots of heavy books as well. Ooh, that's beautiful. To come back to our point, when you're thinking, what exactly happens? And I came to a little like theory of mine, no longer a hypothesis. I know the difference. My theory is you are built out of three things. The first thing, which is the most evident one, is the body. And the body, everything about the body, including the mucus in your nose, the hair, everything is basically your existence in this reality, the world. Voila. And your brain is basically the component that kind of like guides it, moves it. How does your brain function? Your brain functions electricity, right? Basically, sense sparks. We're practically a moving computer that can process shit in multiple ways. We don't have to be plugged to an electrical device all fucking day. All we have to do is basically eat something every once in a while. And I say every once in a while because you literally would have a clearer brain the less you eat because your body processes energy and your mind processes, I think, 20 to 30% of your energy, and your gut, your stomach processes between 30 to 40% of your energy. So when your stomach is functioning, all of us experience drowsiness when you're full. It's because most of the energy is going to your stomach. Men kind of experience, I don't know what I was thinking when they're a bit excited, I guess, regardless of the excitement. So I don't know what I was thinking. You weren't thinking. That's the whole thing. You were not. You were literally letting every thought that comes to your head be an okay thing. And so the thoughts that are in your head, that's basically your mind. And your mind is not a physical existence. It doesn't exist. It's every single thing around you, kind of like is input in a way so that your brain can make a decision. But your brain can best make a decision based on the experience it had, the knowledge it had, the understanding of whatever it had. And the third thing that connects these two together is basically you. Who are you? Let's not dive into that. But ultimately, there's a certain intention that follows every action. Have we ever had these moments where it's like, I'm gonna kick his fucking ass? And then suddenly everything around the world kind of shifts towards that alone. Every emotion, every response, every trigger. If somebody touches you when you're angry, you're like, leave me the fuck alone. All that shit. I'd imagine everyone goes through something like this at one point. To make a clear distinction, your intention was to, let's say, revenge. The mind built up every scenario based on its previous stored experiences and started throwing them at you until they came with the best solution to fulfill the intention that you put there. And the only way to fulfill that is with the body, whether it's a verbal response, a physical response, a passive response, a malicious response. I don't know, man. We each tend to choose which intention to put in our head, and our mind will take that intention and gladly do its work. So, the three parts concerned with our thinking process could literally be the procedure, which is the trained mind. I think that's what they call it. The intention, which is always biased to how you want to see the world, how you want to look at your day, how do you want this relationship, how do you want the end result of this conversation, this activity. It's always biased towards you. You are the center of your world. So it's always your word is that resounds in your mind. If other people's words are resounding in your mind, it's just because you chose to let their intention interfere and get in. And the mind, that's basically the storage of procedures, the most efficient way to do stuff. Think of walking. You don't actually think how you're walking. You just think, I want to walk to the kitchen. And suddenly you're moving. Your mind already has the procedure, puts it in place, activates it, your body follows suit. If we look at these three, we can understand a lot more about how we get in our own way and how, when we're thinking, we kind of are the people that are not allowing us to complete the process of thinking. So, anytime you're feeling stuck and you give up, suddenly you have an epiphany. It's because when you say that you gave up, or when you yourself kind of like stopped trying to think, you allowed your mind to just process things. Some people say take a step back. Some people to say reflect objectively on the situation. Objectively means don't include yourself in it. It's not personal. But ultimately, if we're able to kind of allow the process of whatever's going on to be intention based, like what do I want out of this, it becomes a lot smoother for us to think. Or let me explain it in a better way, it becomes a lot smoother for us to observe the end result of our thoughts, because we're not the ones thinking. All we're doing is watching our mind miraculously uncover things that can contribute whether positively or negatively, to the intention that we have. And our body follows suit. It does sound simple, yet I think our reaction to the world has always been reaction. Our interaction with with the world has always been a reaction. The more personally we feel we're involved in something, the less we allow it to be exactly how it is, and the more we implement our visions of it without nurturing it, without allowing it to be a bigger part of ourselves. I guess what I'm trying to say, not I guess, but what I'm trying to say is anytime you think you're thinking, you're literally standing in your own way. Best you could do is allow whatever's in your mind to present itself, and from there any intention you have towards that becomes a more clear direction towards what your mind has to do in order to create this physical reality with your body involved in it into a truth. So do us all a favor, I guess, and stop thinking. Just allow what you want to happen and trust the fact that your brain would literally do anything you want it to do. It'll figure it out. All you have to do is observe, because ultimately that's what we do. We're looking at life from our own head, from our eyes, and we're enjoying the show. Voila! This video is going to be called The Intention Behind Life. Okay.